Hey guys, welcome back to another Disney Pixar Connection video. We are hitting the Easter eggs. We are still in March. We are doing Captain Marvel today and then Age of Ultron tomorrow. Now, I just want to start off with, before we actually get into the Easter eggs, that while this film did come out later after, what was it, after Infinity Wars? I think it came out after Infinity Wars and before Endgame. Let me just, why do I do this? Um, Release dates. It was back in 2019, March. Yes, so it came out in between both Infinity Wars and Endgame, and I think it's really important to note that because a lot of what happens in this particular film actually predates um, most of the films. Now, obviously, it doesn't totally predate Captain America, although I will say that some of it takes place in between when Captain America was in the ice. And I want to, again, want to make note because some of these Easter eggs that are going to pop up are going to play into the future. Now, again, as I'm rewatching these films, and I've watched them several times, I'm noticing things that I hadn't noticed before. And maybe it's because prior to just enjoying the movies, I'm like, yeah, let's just enjoy it, whatever. Like, we're going to have fun with it. Now I'm like, oh my God, like, how did I not notice this before? Now, Captain Marvel is not one of those movies that I think a lot of people really enjoyed, at least from what I observed. A lot of people were kind of upset with Brie Larson for playing Captain America. Um, I don't have an issue with the actress herself. I think there's actually quite an interesting connection between her and the Hulk, aka, oh man. Guys, I'm losing my brain today. Who played who played Banner? Um, oh God, what was his name? Uh, Mark Ruffalo. Sorry. Okay. Now, funny story about that. So, if you guys don't know, in 13 Going on 30, Mark Ruffalo played Jennifer Garner's love interest as an adult. But Brie Larson played the mean girl. Yeah, it was the mean girl in 13 Going on 30. So they actually already filmed in a movie together. And that was a long time ago. So it's kind of funny how they came back into play. This is kind of common for a lot of actors in certain industries. But considering they were both in a different genre and then come in as Marvel characters, interesting. I also want to note that Mark Ruffalo actually has a house up near me where I live. It's about an hour away, and I know friends who got to meet him because of that, and he is super nice. So, or at least that's what they told me. So, I thought it was interesting that at the end of Endgame, that maybe they filmed there because it looks very similar to the surrounding area, but I haven't checked into it, and it, as far as I found, it wasn't his actual home. Um, but anyway, that's a long, that's a whole other situation. We're gonna go dive into these Easter eggs because there are a lot of new things coming out soon that will definitely have to play with Captain Marvel, not just because of the character, but other surrounding characters in this, like Phil Coulson and Nick Fury. So let's dive right into it. So the intro actually changed on Captain Marvel, and it actually focused around Stan Lee. And as you see, some snippets of him being different characters popping up in the Marvel movies. He did actually get a second recognition, or refamous, I guess would be the term, for popping back into um, what do you call it? As these little like characters, like these really, really minor characters and fun Easter eggs. And the reason for this being was that he actually had died a few months prior to the release of this. And so this had been the most recent release since his death. And so they wanted to honor him Um, and I think that's really notable because Stan Lee was an incredible person, not just as, this creator of Marvel and all of that, but really actually doing good in our world. Not just through his comics, as I said, but he was a stand up guy. He was a guy that really fought for the little people and really recognized issues and brought them to light, believe it or not, through the Marvel comics. And it's something that I definitely want to dive more into in the history. But yeah, so just taking note that we will cover other movies where Stan Lee does pop up, and that is only because the release of them was after. Sorry, was before this movie came out. We're kind of going in somewhat chronological order, if that makes sense. Not really, um, not as much as you think it is, but um, yeah, there's quite a lot. Anyway, let's continue on because I just wanted to make note of that. So the movie starts off with this crash. They didn't take you to Hala, which does come up in other films, but we see like the inside. It's very much giving churchy vibes. These are things that come up again in later videos, so I just want to make note. We have Captain Marvel here. She is training as one of them, and she has no idea what is going on, but she knows something is off. Something in her memory is off. But the reality is that back when she was a captain in the Air Force, she went on a flight with her friend who happened to be a Hala citizen. By the way, take note of what is on the plane sides. And this was important because this is when, during this flight, she was protecting, she was being protective of what was going on without even knowing it. And she had the crash. We'll see more later, but she had the crash. She took in the energy, and that is how she became Captain Marvel, right? But she didn't know the significance of her powers at that time. Also, with this particular picture, I want you guys to pay attention to the name. It says Maria Proton Rambo. Maria Rambo is actually Monica's mother. Monica is the one who was in WandaVision. Maria was her mom who died. She was like the head of SWORD at one point. But Proton comes into play because during WandaVision, which we have already covered, I already have a theory on this, so not like I'm giving things away for you guys. Monica may have become Proton through her magic through going through the force field. So important to take note. This will play in later. Obviously, I am doing a whole mix. We are all over the board with this chronological order, but important to note that Maria was there when um, Carol Danvers took on the power of the stone. It ends up being a stone, and that's how Marvel became, or Carol became Captain Marvel. Now, I also want to make note of this flashback of the like circus thing. This piece was of Carol Danvers showing that no matter what, even as a little girl, she was tough and strong, and she wanted to be, like one of the boys. But this whole circus thing also comes up in WandaVision. So, kind of an interesting Easter egg. Just saying, I don't think it has that much significance, but I want to throw that in there. So anyway, this is now in the future. Carol is older, she is trained, and she is now being chased by the Kree. The Kree are after Carol because they need the energy source, and Carol's the one that knows where it is because of who trained her. And so Carol's thinking these guys are bad, but they're really good. We'll see that later in the movie. But during the scene where she's being chased, I just want to note, look who pops up: Nick Fury and Phil Coulson. So now Nick Fury makes note that S.H.I.E.L.D. is still relatively new, and so is Phil. Phil is like brand new to the Force, it's only been a few weeks. If you notice, Nick Fury does not have an eye patch. This plays in both later in the movie as well as throughout the films. We see that, of course, Nick Fury just pops up out of nowhere, but does the end of Captain Marvel actually explain what happens to his eye? I personally think so, but we also have Secret Invasion coming out relatively soon, so who knows? Maybe there's another explanation. And also during Marvel's run away from the Kree, they run into Stan Lee on the bus, and of course, he's reading a book. I have yet to see where this book comes into play. There is another scene where he is on the bus, and that is in Doctor Strange, so you'll see that next week, where that's an Easter egg, and what he is reading does come into play. So, of course, here's his little cameo. Fun. We're going with it. You guys get the point. Then we have mentions of Project Pegasus. This does later come up in other movies, and we know that from Short Shield and then Sword. This is important to note what is going on. Um, but Carol figures out that she is the missing person that Nick Fury is looking for, and she plays a bigger role in this than they realize. Now we come to a scene where Ronan and his minions that we had seen previously, both in Guardians of the Galaxy and in Infinity Wars, which came out before this, and we didn't get to it yet. But this scene, we realize that Captain Marvel, former team, the people that took her in, were not as good as we thought they were. And they actually had a major role to do with this. So, important to note. So then we come to Carol has returned, and she is now talking with Monica and Maria Rambeau. Monica is the little girl, and Maria is the mom. Maria was the one that was there during the initial flight. Then we have a little bit of a flashback of what happened. What happened was she touched the Tesseract, and it is important to know that she took on the power um, to save the Kree. There's some Easter eggs in there. Have fun, space invasions, the all of this. By the way, if you don't remember, the Tesseract was dropped into the ocean in the 1940s, and this is taking place in like the 80s, 70s, 80s. So obviously they found it again, and they probably shouldn't have, but it did help the Kree. Now, while we are dealing with aliens and flying spaceships and all that, I do want to make note that this scene did totally remind me of a Star Wars scene, and well, Star Wars and Marvel and Disney and Pixar are all related, so why not throw that Easter egg in? Yeah, there was a lot of coincidences in this scene. Now, we also go on where uh, Nick Fury was scratched by the lovely cat on his eye. Now, that is important because, well, at the end of this movie, you can see that he's slightly injured, not too bad, but in the next one, or in the next one chronologically, he then has an eye patch. I wonder why. Did it become infected? I think so, as we had seen in, I am blanking, which one was it? I think it was the Captain America Winter Soldier. He does show what happened to his eye. Yeah, that was the one. So it could be because of that. I don't know. What are your thoughts, opinions? And then, of course, Phil Coulson was like, I didn't get myself into this, but I'm still going to be there. Now, we also see in these next few Easter eggs that the reason that the Protective Initiative it was started before this, but the reason they changed it to the Avengers was because of the plane, what was on Carol's plane, it said Avenger. That was her nickname. And that is why it became the Avengers. Kind of interesting. It also ends with the little cat throwing up the Tesseract. So, yeah, this plays later on with they have access to it and it's not good. But so on, so forth. We're Wow. continuing on. Wow. So, definitely can appreciate this movie a heck of a lot more now that other things have come out in the last 3 years. 20 more things in 2019, 2020, 2021, and now we're in 2022. And I am super excited for this lineup. If you haven't checked out my Marvel updates video from from this upcoming Tuesday, I'm like, my schedule is crazy. Anyway, super excited because again, there are tons of things that are going to hint back to this movie. And also there was a hint from WandaVision that also hinted back. So I did mention that in one of the WandaVision theories. You can check that out. Or was it the Monica Rambeau? It was a Monica Rambeau one. Because Monica Rambeau was a little girl. She was the little girl in this movie. But yeah, I mean, we're going to do some comic comparisons shortly, within the next few months. And I'm super excited for that. So be on the lookout for that. We have tons of new content coming. February was all about Marvel. March is all about Marvel. We're going to switch gears for April, which will be all about Pixar, as well as May. And then I haven't figured out June yet. So if you guys have anything you want me to cover in June, let me know. I'm thinking more towards the shorts and give you guys, a lot more short content because there's a ton of stuff that is out and we have not even begun to cover it. But that's all I got for you guys today, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow for Age of Ultron.